My son sat at the reading of the will with a smug smile, convinced that I would get nothing from his mother's $34 million inheritance. But when the lawyer read one single sentence, everything changed. The smile disappeared from Dustin's face, and he started screaming so loudly that the walls of the office shook. I sank into the threadbare armchair in Carla Bennett's reception area, my heart still hammering from that opening salvo. The carpet's muted floral pattern felt oddly comforting under my sneakers, as though it had borne witness to every client's triumphs and tragedies over the years. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, trying to still the cacophony of doubt and regret that rattled in my chest. When my second wife, Liz Carter, died unexpectedly last Tuesday, I thought my world would fall apart all over again. Instead, I found myself summoned here to an elegantly restored Victorian tucked into downtown Cheyenne to hear how she had chosen to distribute the fortune she built after our divorce. A soft chime sounded, and the heavy mahogany door swung open. I looked up to see Carla Bennett, slim, impeccably dressed, and carrying the air of someone accustomed to delivering life-altering news, beckon me forward. "Thomas," she said in that measured tone lawyers adopt before they speak bad news. "They're ready for you." My legs felt leaden as I followed her through a corridor lined with leather-bound law tomes. The murmur of hushed conversation drifted from behind a frosted glass panel. Carla paused outside a pair of double doors. She glanced at me and offered a brief, encouraging smile. "You'll do fine." I nodded, though my throat was tight. With a resolute exhale, I pushed open the doors and stepped into the conference room. A long, polished table filled nearly the entire space. At its head sat Alex Dustin Walker, my son, leaning back with his arms crossed, exuding the same overconfidence I remembered from his teen years. His dark hair was slicked back, his tailored suit impeccable. Next to him, his attorney tapped impatiently on a legal pad, and behind our chairs stood Carla's associates ready to record every word. I slipped into a seat at the table's far end, careful not to meet Dustin's gaze. For 20 years, I'd watched him grow from a bright-eyed boy into a man who believed his mother's success was his birthright and that I was its obstacle. After she divorced me in 2010, Liz's consulting empire swelled beyond anything I could have imagined, while I returned to my modest electrician's job. I'd long ago accepted my small place in her story, but now I wondered what role, if any, I would play in her final chapter. Carla cleared her throat and tapped the will's first page against the table. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, we are here to read the last will and testament of Elizabeth Liz Carter, executed on March 15, 2024. This document revokes all prior wills and codicils." She paused, letting that sink in. Dustin leaned forward slightly, curiosity flickering in his expert-trained eyes. Carla's voice dropped to its precise ceremonial cadence. "To my son, Alexander Walker, I bequeath the family home at 1123 Meadowbrook Lane, along with $500,000 to be transferred from my primary investment account within 60 days. Dustin's lips curled into a satisfied smirk. He nodded to his attorney, who scribbled notes furiously. As Matthew, the attorney, lifted his gaze to me in a conspiratorial wink, I felt a twist of humiliation in my chest. A house and $500,000 generous by any standard, yet scarcely a fraction of Liz's vast holdings. My whole life I'd watched her ascend while I faded into the background. And now in her death she offered him what she deemed appropriate. Carla turned the page. "Next to my former husband, Thomas Michael Walker." My breath caught. I'd long ago accepted bequests of old jewelry and a token sum. I wasn't prepared for anything more. I braced my hands on the table. She read on, voice unwavering, "I bequeath $33.5 million from my securities portfolio, as well as 65% controlling interest in Carter Consulting Solutions, including all subsidiary entities' real estate holdings and board positions." A slow pulse drummed in my ears. $33.5 million, and control of the very company Liz built from scratch after I walked away. The room felt like it spun on a crooked axis. I stared at Carla's placid profile, then at Dustin's wide-eyed horror. His smug facade cracked, replaced by disbelief so visceral he leapt to his feet, chair screeching against the hardwood. "This is impossible," he roared, voice ricocheting off the paneled walls. "She can't. This is fraud. You manipulated her when she was sick." Clara lifted an eyebrow. "Mr. Walker, your mother was declared of sound mind in a full competency evaluation carried out 2 weeks ago. These are her deliberate instructions." Dustin whirled to face me, accusation sparking in his eyes. "How did you do this?" "You must have twisted her mind." His voice rattled with years of buried resentment. "I haven't spoken to your mother in months," I said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "Not since the charity gala last April." He laughed, bitter, hollow. "Then why would she leave everything to you and not to me?" "I'm her son," Carla interjected gently, her tone almost sympathetic. "Alexander, if I may." She retrieved a sealed manila envelope marked with Liz's familiar handwriting. "Your mother included a personal letter to be read after the will. She offered it to me." I hesitated a heartbeat, then took the envelope, fingers trembling. While Dustin seethed, I broke the seal. Unfolding the cream-colored stationery, I recognized the precise loops of Liz's signature. My heart thudded as I cleared my throat and began to read aloud. "My dearest Thomas, if you're hearing this, I have finally found peace. 30 years ago, you taught me integrity, that character matters more than fortune. I married you believing we shared that value. When ambition blinded me, I lost sight of why we fell in love. My son Alex has inherited my tenacity and talent. He will thrive on inheritance, but not without learning the cost of entitlement. Thomas, you deserve every penny, for you always earned everything honestly even when it meant less. May this gift restore what we lost and give you the chance to shape someone else's future with the same honor you showed me." My voice cracked on the final lines. Dustin sank back into his chair, eyes dark with rage and anguish. I felt tears blur my vision as Liz's words washed over me. Validation I thought I'd forfeited forever. Behind me, Carla closed the will and rested her hands on the folder. "These are Elizabeth Carter's final wishes," she said, her tone both solemn and reassuring. "The estate distributions will proceed as specified." Silence wrapped the room like a shroud. Alex stared at the floor, his fury replaced by an emptiness I recognized all too well. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my coat pocket. Rising slowly, I met his gaze. "This was her choice," I said quietly. "Not yours to contest, not mine to question." He looked up, hate and something like wonder mingling in his expression. I don't know what to say." "Then don't," I replied, turning to leave the room, with Carla's entourage trailing behind. At the door I paused and glanced back at Dustin, no longer the boy I once comforted, but a man confronted with the fragility of his own assumptions. As the doors swung shut, I felt Liz's presence beside me, guiding me into an uncertain future. One built not on skepticism or regret, but on the unshakable strength of love redeemed at last. I stepped out of Carla's office into the crisp afternoon air, the heft of Liz's letter still warm in my coat pocket. My legs felt unsteady, as though the world had shifted on its axis. Dustin lingered in the doorway, his shoulders hunched, and his face a battlefield of anger, grief, and confusion. I closed the door gently between us and took a slow, steadying breath, determined not to let his fury pull me back into old patterns of shame and self-doubt. I made my way down the block, passing storefronts that glowed with springtime optimism, each bouquet in a florist's window, each polished pair of shoes in a boutique, seemed infused with possibility I had been blind to for years. The letter tucked close to my heart reminded me that Liz believed in me even when I had stopped believing in myself. Her words about character outweighing credentials echoed in the quiet chambers of my mind. May this gift restore what we lost and give you the chance to shape someone else's future with the same honor you showed me. I fingered that line like a talisman against the swirling doubts. By the time I reached my car, my shirt was damp with sweat, not from the walk, but from the weight of inheritance I'd never sought. A leather satchel one I used to haul tool kits and blueprints sat in the passenger seat. I slid into the driver's seat and let the engine idle, staring out at the sidewalk where fashionably dressed funeral guests streamed away from the chapel. I realized my Honda looked embarrassingly humble among the luxury vehicles. Yet it had carried me through decades of honest labor, and today it felt emblematic of a life lived on solid ground, held steady by integrity rather than opulence. I unfolded Liz's letter on my lap and reread the opening lines, her voice clear in my memory. Beneath the sentences lay an invitation to rise to a new challenge to honor her legacy with the kind of stewardship only someone who truly loved her could provide. I imagined her smile sharp and encouraging as she'd once rallied me at our drafting table. I let my mind wander back to those nights in our little apartment, arguing over furniture placement because I'd misplaced her delicate teacup. We were young, passionate, and imperious in our convictions. Then somewhere along the way, ambition had built walls between us until divorce leveled everything we'd known. But this astounding turn felt like a phoenix rising from those ashes. I thumbed the envelope again, drawing strength from her belief that I could wield wealth responsibly. The phone buzzed an unknown number. My heart lurched another legal hurdle. Hesitantly, I answered, "Mr. Walker." The voice on the other end was crisp professional. "This is Maria Chen, president of Carter Consulting Solutions. I've been informed of the will and your new role. I'd like to schedule a call to discuss leadership transition." I pressed my thumb against the screen. "Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Chen." After hanging up, I sat for a moment, letting the magnitude sink in responsibility for a company that employed hundreds, served thousands of clients, and held thousands more stories in its ledgers. I'd once thought a quiet life was my destiny. Now I faced a destiny I hadn't imagined. I started the car and headed for the highway, my mind racing through to-do lists that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Notify the board, secure shareholder agreements, lean on Carla's guidance, and perhaps most critically find a way to bridge the chasm with Dustin. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of traffic lights and telephone poles until I spotted the sign for Elmview Heights, my modest complex, 2 stories of brick and empathy, the place where I had retreated after divorce. I parked and unloaded the satchel, retrieving Liz's letter and a folder Carla had given me with corporate bylaws and my official appointment documents. I carried them up the narrow staircase, each step a reminder that I was ascending into uncharted territory. Inside, I found the apartment just as I'd left it. A single armchair beside the window, a small drafting table cluttered with wiring diagrams from my last electrician job, and the comforting hum of the refrigerator. I set down my satchel and sat at the table spreading out the company papers and Liz's letter side by side. I reached for a pen and a blank notepad. The first entry was simple. 1. Breathe. 2. Honor Liz's vision. For the next hour, I outlined immediate actions. Call Maria Chen to confirm our meeting, review financial summaries with Marcus, my long-trusted accountant, arrange a board meeting, and draft an introductory memo. Reach out to Dustin, not with accusations or defenses, but with a request to listen. The final line I scribbled read, "Bridge with Alex. Remember love over money." My head cleared with each written task. Responsibility felt less like a weight and more like a calling. I called Marcus at his office. His warm voice greeted me. "Thomas, I heard the news. Congratulations, though I know it must feel overwhelming." "It does," I admitted. "I need your help to sort the estate accounts and plan for the company transition." "You'll have it. I'll prepare preliminary reports by Friday." I thanked him, feeling gratitude to a man who knew my strengths and weaknesses well. After hanging up, I realized how different this moment felt from past conversations. Then matters of money had been hushed tones of anxiety. Now they were discussions of stewardship and service. The evening settled softly outside my window, and as the sky turned indigo, I drafted an email to Dustin. My fingers hovered over the keys, emotions tugging at me. I wrote simply, "Alex. I know today was jarring. I don't expect you to understand now, but I need you with me as we honor your mother's wishes together. Can we meet tomorrow morning at the cafe where Bri kept her journals? I'd like to talk. No accusations, just a father and son finding a path forward. Love, Dad." I stared at the words, uncertain whether they'd bridge the gulf or collapse in silence. But I believed that Liz had chosen me for reasons beyond business acumen, because I could love her legacy and our son with the same integrity I had once tried to uphold in our marriage. Hitting send, I felt a flicker of hope. Before sleep claimed me, I replayed the will's reading in my mind, Dustin's fury, Carla's calm authority, and Liz's final testament of love. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more decisions, and the formidable task of proving that a man once deemed holding her back could be the very one to propel her vision into the future. But as I drifted off Liz's words, "Character matters more than credentials," lingered in my heart, a new compass guiding me toward a tomorrow defined not by regret, but by redemption. The morning light slanted across the worn wood table at Eleanor's cafe, where Liz used to tuck her notebooks beside a steaming latte. I arrived early, clutching my mug, as though salvation itself might be brewed inside. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see Alex, my son, walk in posture, stiff eyes wary. He paused before sliding into the chair opposite me. "Dad," he said, voice tight. I offered a small nod. "Morning, Alex." He glanced at my coffee, untouched. "You're not, caffeinated?" I managed a half smile. "Still processing." He only watched. I reached into my coat and placed Liz's letter on the table between us. "I thought you might want to read this again." Alex's fingers trembled as he picked up the envelope. "I've read it 10 times, he muttered. I took a steadying sip of coffee. The warmth spread through me, anchoring my racing heart. I'm sorry, I blurted. For everything before the divorce, years of silence. I never stopped caring. He lifted his gaze, conflicted. I know you loved her once. His voice cracked. But I lost my mother when she married ambition. And now she leaves everything to you. I understand your anger, I said softly. I'd feel the same. He sank back, crossing his arms, eyes flicking to the door as if expecting an ambush. I leaned forward. Your mother trusted me with her life's work, not to claim revenge, but to honor her legacy. I need your help to do that well. His jaw tightened. Why should I help you manage my mother's empire when you spent years running away? My throat constricted. I didn't run away to hurt her or you. I stayed true to the values she and I once shared, character over credentials. I believed I could protect her from the corrosive side of success. He let out a bitter laugh. By hiding behind a fuse box and a paycheck, I winced, but pressed on. Maybe it sounded small, but every time I flicked a switch and restored power to hundreds of homes, I remembered the worth of honest work. That's what she wanted me to have, a reminder that integrity matters. He stared at his untouched latte. Finally he sighed and folded the letter. All right, he said quietly. What's next? Relief washed through me. First, I want you at the board meeting next week. Your perspective matters more than anyone's. He shook his head. I'm not signing off on my mother's will, Dad. But I'll sit in. I nodded. I'll ask Maria Chen to reserve you a seat. After that, I'd like your input on our first major decision, whether to merge with Atlantic Partners or maintain independent growth. His eyes narrowed. You've already jumped into the deep end. I shrugged, admitting the truth. I dove in to honor Liz's wishes, but I don't have to swim alone. A fragile silence settled, broken only by plates clinking at nearby tables. Then Alex met my gaze. Okay. But if I see one decision that undermines the company or Mom's vision, I walk. Fair, I said. His nod felt like a bridge half-built, strong enough to cross but requiring careful steps. That afternoon I called Maria Chen. I heard her warm greeting through the click of my phone speaker. Thomas, I've been awaiting your call. Alex's presence at the board meeting is noted. We're scheduled for Tuesday at 10. Thank you, I replied. Also, I'd like to introduce a mentorship program for junior consultants, one that aligns with Liz's passion for nurturing talent. Her tone brightened. That's inspired. I'll prepare proposals for our review. I closed my notebook and exhaled. Already the complexity of leadership felt less daunting with allies by my side. Tuesday morning, the conference room at Carter Consulting Solutions hummed with anticipation. Dark mahogany tables formed a U around a central display of quarterly reports. Dozens of executives, team leads, and department heads looked between me and my son, awaiting direction. Maria Chen sat to my left, offering a reassuring nod. I cleared my throat. Thank you all for joining. As you know, I'm Thomas Walker, and this is my son, Alexander Walker. A ripple of polite applause followed. Alex shifted uncomfortably, but returned the applause with a curt nod. I continued. Your mother entrusted me with this company's future. I intend to honor her commitment to integrity, innovation, and community. I paused. First, I'd like Alex to share his thoughts on our growth strategy. He swallowed, then rose. Thank you. I've reviewed the last quarter's numbers and market analyses. I believe a selective merger could expand our reach without sacrificing quality. But I want to ensure retention packages for current staff. It's part of honoring Mom's culture. His voice steadied as he spoke. Maria exchanged a satisfied glance with me. I stood. That's precisely why I asked him to sit in, protecting our people while scaling up exactly the balance we need. Several hands shot up. Questions followed. How do we manage integration? What's the timeline? Each answer Alex offered and I supplemented felt like laying a new foundation. As the meeting-wrapped colleagues lingered to shake our hands, welcome us, and express optimism. Walking back to my office, Alex at my side, I felt a surge of pride. You handled that well, I said. He offered a small, genuine smile. I suppose it wasn't a total disaster. I chuckled. Trust me, from one disaster to another, you've graduated with honors. He rolled his eyes but laughed. The sound felt like sunlight. That afternoon, I visited Marcus Webb's office. The senior accountant greeted me with a grin and a stack of spreadsheets. Assets are aligned for transition, he said. But there's an opportunity reallocating a small portion into impact investments, renewable energy, community housing projects your mom championed. I nodded enthusiastically. Let's reallocate 1% of our portfolio to start. And draft a quarterly impact report. Marcus tapped his pen. Consider it done. As I left his office, afternoon sun splashed against the skyscrapers. I inhaled deeply. Between the board meeting's success and Marcus's proposals, Liz's legacy was already taking shape in new ways, guided by stewardship and conscience. That evening I found Alex waiting outside my apartment. He looked down the street as though expecting a luxury car to whisk him away, then turned to me. Can I come in? I nodded and unlocked the door. He stepped inside, eyes sweeping over the familiar clutter blueprints on the drafting table, a coil of wire on the floor, the letter framed on the wall beside Liz's photo. I wanted to see where you've been living all these years, he said softly. I gestured to the modest living room. This was home. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. He took a seat on the couch, glancing at the framed letter. She trusted you here, he said quietly. I sat beside him. She saw something in me you didn't. But I hope you see it now. He met my gaze. I'm beginning to. I let the words hang between us. The apartment, once the site of private regrets, now felt like a sanctuary where our reconciliation could finally take root. Alex stood and offered his hand. Thanks for inviting me. I took it, gripping firmly. Thank you for coming. He smiled, a genuine curve of his lips. Let's build something together. Mom's vision and ours. As we stepped into the dusk-warmed hallway, father and son, united by purpose beyond inheritance, I felt the promise of tomorrow, a future shaped not by the fortune Liz left behind, but by the unwavering bond we chose to forge anew. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new corner office, painting the walls gold as I arrived early to review the mentorship program proposal. The plan, born from Liz's passion for nurturing talent, paired junior consultants with seasoned leaders for quarterly workshops, hands-on training, and community service projects. Maria Chen had already greenlit a pilot cohort of 10, and today I was scheduled to meet our first protégés. My heart thrummed as I unlocked the door. Each step into this company still felt like stepping onto unsteady ground, even though Liz's faith in me echoed with every polished tile. At precisely 9, the conference room filled with the nervous energy of young professionals in crisp dress shirts and shy smiles. I welcomed them with a warm nod, then motioned to Alex, who stood at the head of the table looking both confident and wary. Good morning, I began, voice steady. Thank you for joining us. This program exists because your mother believed in paying forward opportunity. I hope to honor her vision and today to learn from you as much as you learn from us." A tall woman with auburn curls raised her hand. "Mr. Walker," she said, voice polite but firm, "what does leadership mean to you? Why should we trust this program?" Her question hit me like a splash of cold water. I met her gaze. Leadership isn't just charts and profit margins. It's vulnerability, accountability, and empathy. It's making mistakes and owning them, something I've done plenty of over the past decade. I glanced at Alex. "And this gentleman," I continued, gesturing to my son, "has experienced leadership in both triumph and turmoil. He'll share a bit about that in a moment." Alex shifted forward, clearing his throat. "You all have my respect for signing up. I know I once thought my mother's ambition defined me, but I learned the hard way that values define our work. I promise to be transparent, no sugarcoating the challenges of a high-pressure environment." His voice grew stronger. "I want you to see this program as a partnership. We teach you tools, and you teach us your fresh perspectives." The young consultants exchanged impressed glances. I felt a surge of pride and relief that Alex was stepping up. Over the next hour, we outlined paired mentoring sessions, job shadowing opportunities on client calls, and a weekend community build project, restoring a local nonprofit's meeting hall. The room buzzed with genuine excitement. I scribbled notes furiously, imagining the impact this could have. After the session, Alex and I retreated to my office for a debrief. He kicked off his polished loafers and leaned against my desk. That went better than I imagined. I closed the door, the city's hum distant beyond the glass. I was impressed. "You spoke from experience and from the heart." He ran a hand through his hair. I realized I've spent years hiding behind my mother's shadow. Today, I felt like myself. I nodded, warmth blooming in my chest. That's the best outcome I could hope for. Just then, Maria Chen appeared in the doorway, her heels clicking against the marble threshold. "Thomas, Alex. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent matter." She handed both of us tablets displaying a news notification. A junior consultant, one of our mentees, had been arrested for alleged embezzlement of client funds at a rival firm. My stomach dropped. "How did we not catch this?" I murmured, scanning the article. Maria continued, "This has nothing to do with our program yet, but it raises concerns about vetting and oversight. We need a plan quickly." Alex's jaw tightened. "Our reputations are at stake. If people see us associated with scandal, they'll question every decision we make." I laid a hand on his shoulder. "We'll address this head-on. Transparency and process will turn this into a learning moment, not a crisis." Maria offered a professional nod. "I'll draft a statement. We emphasize due diligence support investigations and reaffirm our commitment to ethical standards." I agreed. "Let's call a board emergency meeting this afternoon. Full disclosure, zero defensiveness." At 2 o'clock, the executive board assembled in the glass-walled room that overlooked the city skyline. Tension crackled in the air as Maria presented the facts. The arrest was unrelated to any Carter consulting project. The consultant in question had transferred after our intake. But the headline threatened to conflate our brand with theirs. A veteran board member, Mr. Alvarez, leaned forward. "How do we reassure clients and the public that our mentorship program maintains integrity?" I stood and offered a steady gaze. "First, we tighten our vetting background checks, reference interviews, and probationary periods. Second, we introduce quarterly ethics workshops for all new hires and mentees, not just legal compliance, but real-world scenarios. Third, we create an anonymous hotline for reporting concerns. I propose we launch this next week with a full communication plan," Alex added. "We'll feature stories of positive outcomes. The first cohort's community build project testimonials from mentors and mentees, and an op-ed from my mother's foundation emphasizing character over credentials." Maria circulated a draft press release. "This shows action and accountability," she said. A hush fell as the board absorbed the plan. Finally, Ms. Nguyen, head of HR, nodded. "These measures exceed industry standards. I fully support them." The chairman tapped his gavel. "Motion approved. Let's move forward swiftly." Relief washed over me. Alex grinned, a spark of triumph in his eyes. We'd turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of leadership. That evening, Alex and I convened at the community hall where our first mentorship build had taken place. Dust motes danced in the lamplight as we inspected a wall half rebuilt by our volunteers. The sawdust scent mingled with fresh paint and optimism. Alex placed a hand on the new framing. "Remember when I doubted this project would matter?" he said, voice low. I joined him. "Now look at it. You led those teams with confidence." He smiled, a real, effortless curve of lip. "I felt a connection to something bigger than myself for the first time in years." I surveyed the sturdy new wall. Liz would be proud. He nodded, then turned serious. "Dad, there's one more thing. I've reviewed the board minutes. Some directors want to sell off the junior mentoring initiative, calling it a distraction from core operations." My chest tightened. They don't see long-term value in cultivating future talent. Alex shook his head. They'd rather cut costs now than invest in tomorrow. I set my jaw. Then we'll make the case data on retention productivity gains positive public relations. I'll present the numbers at next week's board meeting. He exhaled admiration in his gaze. "I'm with you." I ruffled his hair, an old habit from his childhood. "We'll prove that ethics and revenue aren't mutually exclusive." That weekend we held our first ethics workshop in the freshly repaired community hall, inviting not only our mentees but also clients and civic leaders. As I spoke about Liz's belief in service, and Alex shared his journey from son of an empire to a mentor himself, the room filled with engaged faces and nodding heads. Questions flowed about real-world dilemmas, cultural challenges, lines between loyalty and profit. We didn't have all the answers, but together we navigated each scenario with honesty. Afterward, attendees lingered to shake our hands, share stories of personal integrity tested under pressure, and express support for our initiative. Watching Alex field questions with empathy and conviction, I felt a surge of pride unlike any I'd known. The board's doubts now felt distant, overshadowed by the palpable energy of people determined to do well by doing good. As dusk settled and volunteers packed up tables and chairs, Alex turned to me. Today felt right. I nodded at the empty hall. "We're laying a foundation stronger than drywall and paint. We're building a culture that withstands any storm." He smiled. And in that moment I saw not just my son, but a partner equal parts idealist and pragmatist, tempered by adversity, yet unbowed by it. We loaded the last of the tools into my old pickup under a lavender sky, the hall's lights glowing softly behind us. Climbing into the cab, Alex offered the passenger seat. I started the engine and exhaled, a deep sense of purpose settling in my bones. The road ahead would be challenging board meetings, corporate negotiations, public scrutiny, but we would meet each trial with the lessons Liz had granted us: integrity, service, and the unwavering belief that character outlasts credentials. Together, father and son, we drove into the night, ready to honor a legacy reborn in our hands and hearts. The next morning, sunlight danced through the blinds of my home office, painting ribbons of gold across the stack of board reports waiting on my desk. I felt the familiar flutter of anticipation today. We'd unveil the first impact investment initiative honoring Liz's vision for community housing and renewable energy. Alex was due at 9 to co-present with me, and I straightened the tie he'd borrowed last night, imagining his confident nod beside me at the podium. Arriving at the headquarters, the corridor felt charged with purpose. I passed teams huddled over prototypes and proposals, women and men who'd built their careers under Liz's mentorship. I wondered if she was watching us from somewhere proud of this new chapter. In the conference room, Alex waited at the head of the table beside Maria Chen, their laptops open to a shared slide deck. He looked up and offered a small smile. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, partner," I replied, taking my seat. The room fell silent as department heads filed in finance, legal operations, marketing, all seasoned professionals curious about the plan. I cleared my throat. "Thank you for joining us. Today we present Carter Community Fund, an allocation of 1% of our assets dedicated to affordable housing and clean energy projects in underserved regions." Maria clicked to the first slide, a map of Wyoming communities with aging utilities and housing shortages. I turned to the finance director, Paula. "With your blessing, the fund would seed 5 pilot projects by year-end." Paula adjusted her glasses. "I've reviewed the numbers. It's modest relative to our portfolio, but it signals a bold shift. What's the expected ROI?" Alex leaned forward. "Return won't be purely financial. Imagine stable tenants paying fair rent, reducing vacancy rates, strengthening our regional reputation, factors that translate into long-term profitability." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The operations lead, Marcus, raised a hand. "We'll need partnerships with local developers and nonprofits. Do we have contacts?" I nodded. "I've spoken with Habitat for Humanity and Rocky Mountain Energy Co-op. They're eager to collaborate." As slides detailed project timelines and governance structures, I watched Alex guide questions with growing surety. When the Q&A closed, Maria beamed. "This honors Liz's legacy and sets us apart." I moved to approve. Hands shot up in support. The proposal passed unanimously. Applause broke out, and Alex looked at me, eyes bright with pride. I squeezed his shoulder. "We did it." After the meeting, I slipped into Maria's office with Alex close behind. "You've grown into quite the strategist," she told him warmly. "Thanks," he said, voice sincere. "I owe it to both of you." He turned to me, and I felt a lump in my throat. Back in my own office, I reviewed messages, municipal leaders wanting details, community groups offering land for development, and a note from Marcus Webb confirming financial adjustments. My phone buzzed again, an incoming email from Carla Bennett. She'd finalized my appointment as chairman of the board effective immediately. I exhaled, swallowing a tide of emotion. Liz had trusted me with her empire. Now I had to live up to that trust. That evening I collected Alex from his downtown apartment. He greeted me at the door with a mug of chamomile tea. "Thought you'd like something calming," he said. I managed a grateful smile and took the cup. We settled on his couch, the city skyline glowing behind him. "I've been thinking," he began, tracing the rim of his cup, "about how Mom always balanced profit with people." He paused as if searching for the right words. "My job offers stock options and bonuses, but no one ever asked if our projects built community." I nodded. She used to say, "If you don't uplift the people, wealth uplifts only ego." He set his tea down. I want to start an internal program mentoring emerging consultants from underrepresented backgrounds. We could pair them with senior engineers and analysts. I felt warmth flood my chest. That's brilliant. We should propose it at tomorrow's executive meeting. He smiled, tentative, hopeful. Do you really think they'll go for it? I clasped his shoulder. Not just go for it, they'll embrace it because it's exactly what Liz would have championed. He leaned back, eyes closing in relief. We sat in comfortable silence, two men rebuilding their bond over shared purpose. The next morning, I strode into the executive suite, Alex by my side. The entire leadership team gathered, some faces new, others weathered friends of Liz's tenure. I tapped the microphone. Before we finalize next quarter's targets, Alex and I have one more initiative, a mentorship program for diverse talent cultivation. He explained the framework from recruiting to training to performance metrics. As he spoke, I watched executives' nodding eyes alight with enthusiasm. When he concluded, the COO, Elena, stood. This aligns perfectly with our values and growth strategy. I second the motion. A round of applause followed. I felt a swell of pride in Alex, not just for the idea, but for the man he was becoming. Later that afternoon, I retreated to Liz's old office, now mine, where a single orchid bloomed on her desk. I ran my fingers along the polished wood, remembering our laughter and disagreements in this room. I opened my satchel and retrieved her framed letter, placing it gently beside the orchid. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the faint scent of spring. I spoke aloud, a vow to the woman who shaped me. I'll honor your legacy, Liz, with every decision, every investment, and every mentor I guide. I turned to leave, heart light with purpose. Weeks passed in a blur of project kickoffs, board meetings, and community visits. Alex and I traveled to a pioneer town on Wyoming's eastern plains, inspecting a habitat-led housing project we'd seeded. As we toured nearly completed homes, children raced around newly landscaped yards, and neighbors waved in gratitude. I watched Alex kneel to shake a young builder's hand, pride and humility in his smile. We climbed into the truck and drove to the next site, a solar farm poised to power the entire valley. Alex pointed out the rows of panels, eyes bright. Mom would have loved this. I gripped the steering wheel, voice thick. She was our North Star. He reached across and tapped my arm. Thanks for making sure her light still guides us. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, painting the sky in fiery streaks, I realized our journey had come full circle. From that tense morning in Carla's office to the boardrooms and project sites, we'd transformed grief and conflict into a legacy of purpose. And standing beside my son, no longer adversaries but partners, I felt the promise of tomorrow, a world rebuilt not on wealth alone, but on the power of character, compassion, and the enduring light of a woman who believed in us both. The weeks that followed felt like navigating a river after a dam break. Swift currents of projects, board meetings, and community events flowed into one another with barely a pause. Yet even as Carter Consulting Solutions flourished under our Carter Community Fund and mentorship programs, a new challenge emerged, one that would test not only our business acumen, but the fragile trust between Alex and me. It began with an email from our renewable energy partner, Rocky Mountain Energy Co-op. Their inaugural solar array, built on a windswept ridge near Cheyenne, had underperformed by 30%. Local ranchers complained of power disruptions, and the newspaper smelled scandal. Maria forwarded the message to me and Alex late Friday afternoon. "We need to address this immediately," her note read. I glanced at Alex, who was already on his phone dialing. Monday morning, we convened an emergency operations meeting. The conference room was tense, the air thick with wool coats and skepticism. Paula from finance frowned at the slide showing production shortfalls. 30% below forecast, she said. That's not a rounding error. Marcus, our COO, tapped his pen. Preliminary diagnostics point to a flawed inverter batch and weak maintenance protocols. The co-op is threatening to withdraw funding. Alex sat forward, eyes blazing. Then we fix it. We'll dispatch our engineers, cover any costs for replacement inverters, and offer additional training for their maintenance crew. He turned to me. Dad, we can't let one failure undo our credibility. I nodded, but a knot tightened in my stomach. This was more than a technical hiccup. It was a public test of our commitment to community impact. If we fumbled, critics would pounce, Carter. Consulting can't manage its own projects, they'd say. Worse, Liz's name, once synonymous with reliability, would be dragged through the mud. I swallowed and stood. Alex is right. We own this. I'll call co-op leadership personally to apologize and pledge our full support. Marcus, coordinate the tech team. Paula, secure funds for expedited replacement parts. We move fast, we make it right. 24 hours later, Alex and I climbed into my old Ford truck and headed north, following a ribbon of 2-lane highway out of Cheyenne. Behind the wheel, I felt my hands remember past drives, late-night service calls, weekend emergencies. Beside me, Alex studied his tablet, mapping the quickest route to the substation. The tension between us from those early will readings had eased into professional syncopation. Yet every mile we covered revealed the weight of our new roles. At the site, the gray sky threatened rain. Wind whipped the prairie grass into waves as rows of solar panels stretched down the slope. The co-op's project manager, a wiry man named Derek Hawkins, greeted us with arms crossed. "Glad you could join us," he said, voice tight. "We've been down since last Thursday." I extended my hand. "Derek, I'm Thomas Walker. I want to apologize on behalf of Carter Consulting and assure you we'll resolve this." He nodded curtly. "Our community relies on this power. Blackouts last week cost a local refinery $1,000 worth of downtime." Alex stepped forward. "We're replacing the inverters this week free of charge. We'll station 2 of our engineers here for the next month to oversee maintenance. We want this system reliable." Derek's jaw softened slightly. "I'll need documentation by Cobb tomorrow. Consider it done." Alex's confidence carried the day, but I saw in Derek's eyes the lingering doubt that we, an ex-electrician and his son, could pull off a multi-million-dollar technical rescue. We climbed a service truck to inspect the array. The wind roared through my jacket as we climbed the slope, each inverter box a testament to high hopes now faltering. Alex knelt beside one unit, popping its lid. "See this connector," he said, pointing. "Manufacturer specs called for IP67 sealing. These only rated IP65. Water intrusion corroded the circuits." I crouched next to him, peering in. "That vendor corner cut. We'll need new units and revised specs in the contract." Alex frowned. "We'll renegotiate. Meanwhile, let's document every fault for warranty claims." We spent the afternoon walking the rows of panels, logging serial numbers, and photographing every loose seal. At dusk, soaked by drizzle and wind, I felt the old exhilaration of frontline problem-solving, but also a new humility, knowing that Liz's legacy demanded more than financial muscle. It required hands-on accountability. Back in Cheyenne, we presented our findings to Maria and the executive team via video call. Marcus led with technical detail, Alex explained the contractual remedies, and I closed with an apology on behalf of our company. We'll cover replacement costs, upgrade specs, and implement quarterly maintenance audits moving forward, I said. Liz built this firm on trust. Today, we honor that. Maria nodded, eyes somber. Thank you, Thomas. Your swift action reassures our partners. Let's hope the co-op sees it the same way. Over the weekend, Alex and I reviewed final vendor agreements and drafted a press statement expressing our commitment. As we worked side by side in my home study, surrounded by Liz's framed letter and the orchid on her desk, I realized how far we'd come since Carla's office. Our bond was forged in conflict, tested in boardrooms, and deepened on windswept prairies. On Monday morning, we gathered the leadership team for a live-streamed announcement. Cameras rolled as I cleared my throat. Today, Carter Consulting Solutions reaffirms our dedication to community and quality. We are replacing all IP65 inverters across our renewable portfolio at no cost to our partners and implementing a comprehensive maintenance program effective immediately. I gestured to Alex, who added, "We welcome feedback from Rocky Mountain Energy Co-op and local stakeholders. Together, we'll ensure reliable, sustainable energy for every home." The digital comment feed lit up with supportive messages from community leaders, environmental groups, and even a few skeptical industry analysts. Our fault had become a reaffirmation of purpose, proof that accountability could restore faith. Later that afternoon, I found Alex alone in the rooftop garden overlooking our headquarters. He'd posted a solitary bench and a few planters where he took breaks. He stood looking out over the city. I joined him, hands in pockets. "Well done," I said quietly. He gave a half smile. I was worried I'd overpromise. "You underpromised who you are," I replied. "You delivered." He turned, eyes reflecting skyscraper windows. "Thanks for trusting me to lead." I laid a hand on his shoulder. "Your mother believed in you. I'm just following her example." He nodded, and for a moment neither of us spoke, content in shared purpose. That evening I returned to my apartment with the day's success buzzing in every nerve. Liz's letter sat framed on the mantel, and I stepped beside it, pressing a gentle kiss to its glass. "We did it," I whispered. We honored her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, shareholder reviews, more community projects, the ongoing test of leading a thriving company. Yet, as I prepared for bed, the memory of Alex's steady confidence and Liz's enduring faith filled me with peace. In the quiet dark, I understood that legacy wasn't a monument to the past, but a living promise carried forward by those who believe fiercely and faithfully in the power of character over fortune. We hadn't seen rain like this in months, dark clouds rolling in over the prairie, soaking the community housing site with a sudden downpour on Wednesday afternoon. I stood under the lean-to shelter with Alex and Maria Chen watching as muddy water pooled around the foundation we'd poured only last month. Without warning, a convoy of black SUVs rumbled down the dirt road and screeched to a halt. Out stepped Mrs. Evelyn Crawford, the NIMBY leader from the neighboring subdivision, flanked by a small crowd of like-minded homeowners. Their faces were pinched with concern and resentment. I tucked the brim of my hat down against the rain and approached them with Alex at my side. Evelyn's umbrella bobbed like a beacon in the gray. "Mr. Walker," she said, voice tight as storm clouds, "do you know what you're doing to our property values? These rental units, this traffic, it's going to ruin our neighborhood. I demand you stop construction immediately." Her words landed like hail on my spirit. I'd poured everything into this project, honoring Liz's dream of affordable housing, stabilizing a community that had been forgotten. Now, these folks saw dollar signs and nothing more. I squared my shoulders. "Mrs. Crawford, I understand your concerns, but these homes will provide safe, affordable living for families struggling in Cheyenne. We've complied with every zoning regulation, and we've even increased green space to buffer your lots." She shook her head. "Umbrella shaking drops on my coat. Green space won't offset the noise, the traffic, the unsightly rows of uniform homes. You're changing the character of this town." Alex stepped forward, rain matting his dark hair. "With all due respect, ma'am, your character is just fine, but this community needs options. My mother believed in lifting everyone, not just the privileged few." Evelyn's eyes flicked to him, surprise and scorn mingling in her gaze. "Your mother was a businesswoman, not a saint. She'd never have dreamed of dumping low-income housing next to million-dollar estates." I felt anger surge at the insult to Liz's memory. "My mother believed that a home, no matter its price, should be dignified and well built. The people who will live here will take pride in these homes, just as you've taken pride in yours." The crowd murmured, and Evelyn's lips tightened. "We'll see about pride when these houses sell for a fraction of ours. I'm filing for an injunction." She gestured to a man holding official-looking papers. "Expect to see you in court." As the SUVs tore away, Alex and I were left in the rain foundations, half drowned and spirits dampened. I ran a hand through my hair. An injunction would cost us weeks, maybe months. Alex's jaw clenched. "We can't let this stop us. We'll need to head them off present data on crime rates community integration." I held up a hand. "Data won't win their hearts. We need to show them the human side." He frowned, the rain washing mud down his sleeve. "You're right. Let's gather some future residents, moms, kids, veterans, to talk at the city council meeting. Put faces to this project." I nodded, warmed at the thought of real people sharing stories. "And I'll ask Maria to arrange a site tour for the neighborhood association. Let them see the materials, the landscaping, the solar panels powering these homes." That evening, I drafted emails to our nonprofit partners asking for 3 families to participate. I remembered Liz's voice urging me to let the community speak for itself. The next morning, the workshop felt smaller, charged with purpose, as Alex and I prepared goodie bags, coffee vouchers, small houseplants, and folders explaining the project. We loaded them into the truck and headed for the city council chambers. Inside the council's modest meeting room, the seats were already filling with locals. Evelyn and her supporters on one side, and our invited families on the other. Single mothers, a veteran couple, and an elderly neighbor eager for an affordable, accessible home. I took a seat beside Alex in the front row, breathing in the nervous energy. When the chair called the session to order, residents stepped to the microphone. First, Evelyn rose, paper in hand. "I oppose this project because it will damage our property values and strain local infrastructure. I request an immediate halt." She spoke with practiced precision, and a ripple of nods met her words. Then Maria stood in our corner, her voice calm. "I'd like to introduce families who will call these homes their own." She invited each forward. A young mother named Rosa cradled her toddler. "These homes will let me finally give my son a safe yard to play in," she said, eyes bright. A veteran named Marcus stepped up. "My wife and I need affordable housing near medical care," he added, voice steady. The elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patel, adjusted her shawl. "I can't climb steps in my current building," she said. "This wheelchair-accessible design will help me stay independent." Each testimony landed like a pebble in a pond, rippling through the audience. Alex leaned toward me in a whisper. "They're listening." By the time I rose to speak, the mood had shifted. I cleared my throat. My mother believed community meant everyone. These homes are built with high-quality materials, solar panels for efficiency, and green spaces for families and neighbors to share. When I promised to honor her legacy, I meant not just profit, but people. I gestured toward the attendees. These are the voices of our community, hard-working, grateful, and dignified. Evelyn stared at me, face unreadable. I dared to meet her gaze. This project uplifts all of us, not just a few. A murmur of agreement swept the room, and even Evelyn's supporters seemed stirred. The council members exchanged glances, then conferred quietly. After what felt like an eternity, the chair resumed his gavel. The council will allow the project to proceed conditionally with monthly community updates and open site tours. The injunction is denied. Relief poured through me, and I caught Alex's eye. He allowed himself a grin. Mrs. Patel offered me a shy thumbs up. The veterans nodded solemnly. Rosa clutched her son, wiping tears. Back at the workshop that night, we wiped mud from our boots and hung our damp coats by the door. Alex poured 2 beers and we toasted. To real community, he said, voice warm. I clanked bottles. And to Liz's vision. He took a slow sip, then leaned back. Dad, I'm proud of how we handled today. You turned a legal battle into a human story. I set my bottle down and looked around the workshop benches lined with tools, blueprints pinned to cork boards, Liz's letter framed above my desk. We did it together, I replied. Because this legacy isn't just in millions or square feet, it's in every life we touch. Alex nodded, his gaze steady. Tomorrow we start laying the first blocks. I closed my eyes, feeling gratitude and resolve swell. The rain had tested us, but it hadn't washed away our spirit. Instead, it had nourished the seed of a community brought to life by a father and son who believed that home was more than a house. It was hope made real. And as we turned off the lights and locked the doors, I knew we were building something far greater than mortar and beams. We were building a future defined by compassion, unity, and the unbreakable strength of a family redeemed. The Monday after the community meeting dawned crisp and clear, as though Cheyenne itself sighed in relief. I arrived at headquarters before sunrise, the parking lot still empty, and embraced the silence. Liz's letter sat on my desk beside the orchid, its petals unfurled overnight, a quiet promise of renewal. I ran a hand over the frame and whispered, "We've come this far." Then I opened my laptop and saw the email waiting subject line, "Urgent, share, purchase offer." I felt a familiar tightening in my chest. A rival firm, Orion Energy Group, had quietly accumulated shares through the open market, offering our minority stakeholders a premium buyout. Their letter demanded exclusive negotiations, hinting they would launch a hostile takeover if we refused. My pulse hammered. Liz had trusted me to guard her legacy. I couldn't let some Wall Street sharks rip it away. Alex knocked and slipped into my office, coffee in hand. He read the screen over my shoulder and frowned. "They bought 10% already." He set the cup down with a hiss of surprise. "That's enough to sway uninformed shareholders." I stood pacing between my desk and the window that overlooked our courtyard. We have to move fast. If Orion gains control of the board, they'll dismantle every community initiative we built. My voice cracked on the edge of panic. He laid a hand on my shoulder. "Let's gather the core team, Maria, Paula, Marcus, and strategize. We'll need a poison pill and a white knight." His reassurance steadied me. "And we'll need every ally's vote." By mid-morning, the emergency war room buzzed with energy. Maria mapped the shareholding structure on a whiteboard. Paula crunched numbers for a share buyback plan. Marcus outlined legal defenses. Alex filtered in updates from our investor relations group. I watched them transform chaos into order and felt pride flood my veins despite dread. "How quickly can we launch a tender offer?" I asked Paula. She adjusted her glasses. "If we allocate reserve funds, we can underwrite a repurchase of up to 15% within 7 business days. At our guidance price, we'll outbid Orion's premium." Alex pointed to Maria's diagram. "What about persuading the directors to adopt a shareholder rights plan?" Maria nodded. "We can propose a rights plan at tomorrow's board meeting. It triggers dilution if anyone crosses a 20% threshold. That'll deter hostile bidders." I unfolded Liz's letter and let her words guide me. Character over credentials, protect the community at all costs. "Let's do it all," I said firmly. "Tender offer rights plan and secure our allies." That afternoon I practiced my pitch in Liz's old conference room. The chairs still smelled of polished wood and determination. Alex stood opposite, playing the board chairman. "Thomas," he said in a clipped tone, "why should we divert capital to buy back stock instead of reinvesting in our projects?" I drew a slow breath. "Because without independence, our mission dies. We can't build affordable housing or mentorship programs if a profit-driven suitor severs our social impact arm. This isn't diversion, it's defense of our core values." Alex uncrossed his arms, nodding. "Clear. Just keep it concise." The next morning's board meeting felt like stepping onto a stage. Maria, Alex, Paula, and I sat at one end of the long table. Across from us, the directors, some eager allies, others, bank representatives whose loyalties might sway. I opened the packet, a rights plan proposal, financial forecasts for share repurchase, and a letter inviting Orion to a friendly merger discussion, an olive branch wrapped in a steel fist. When the chair recognized me, I stood. "Thank you for convening on short notice. Our company faces a significant market move that threatens our independence and our ability to serve our community. This proposal outlines 3 measures: a shareholder rights plan to protect against hostile acquisition, a tender offer to reclaim shares, and an invitation to Orion for a strategic partnership that preserves our mission." I watched as heads turned to Alex, who took over with market data and compelling visuals. He described Orion's history of stripping social programs post-acquisition. His voice gained strength with each slide, reminding the room of Liz's vision. When he finished, Paula and Maria answered technical and legal questions with precision. At last, the chair called for a vote on adopting the rights plan. Hands rose unanimously in favor. Relief washed over me. Next, the tender offer resolution passed with only one abstention from a director who'd quietly confessed to flirting with Orion's overtures. I felt gratitude for Liz's mentors, these people who remembered the company's soul. During the break, I found Alex alone in the hallway. "You were incredible," I said softly. He exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders. "We did it together. But this isn't over. Orion could still woo our remaining shareholders." I nodded. "Let's finish the tender offer materials tonight and get them filed first thing tomorrow." He patted my back. "I'll stay as long as it takes." That evening, Alex and I pored over the final documents in the quiet of my study, with Liz's letter still watching over us. As we signed affidavits and e-sign resolutions, I felt the weight of responsibility transform into a shared covenant. Protect this company honor, Liz's legacy, and strengthen our bond. The next morning, the press release hit the wires. Carter Consulting Solutions implements defensive measures to protect shareholder value and community mission. News outlets ran the story with headlines praising our decisive action. Orion's shares dipped slightly as investors reconsidered the risk of a rights plan dilution. Inside headquarters, staff buzzed with renewed confidence, our community impact arm now seen as an asset, not a liability. Late that afternoon, I returned to Liz's office, closing the door gently behind me. I poured a glass of water and gazed at her orchid now in full bloom. Her letter caught the golden light. I whispered, "We held the line, Liz. We're still standing." Just then, my phone buzzed a text from Alex's number. "Meet me in the rooftop garden." Intrigued, I climbed there and found him leaning against the railing, watching the sun dip below the foothills. He carried 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Thought we deserved a break," he said, handing me one. I accepted, warmth spreading through me. We sipped in companionable silence, the city lights flickering on below. Finally, Alex spoke. "Dad, I'm proud of what we did, saving our independence, protecting Mom's vision, and doing it together." I set my mug down and met his gaze. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled, shadows playing across his face. "We've earned more than safety for our projects. We've earned each other's trust." I nodded, emotion choking me. "Here's to whatever comes next." We clinked mugs, the rooftop wind carrying our laughter across the city. In that moment I knew we were prepared for any storm, because we faced it as father and son, united in purpose and bound by the lessons of a woman who taught us that real power is measured not by holdings, but by character and community. When dawn crept through my curtains the next morning, I felt the weight of the previous week's battles still settling into my bones. Orion had backed down for now, our rights plan firmly in place and our tender offer underway. But the war for Carter Consulting's future was far from over. Today marked a new chapter, the company's first annual Legacy and Leadership Symposium, an event I'd urged to honor Liz's commitment to mentorship and innovation. Alex and I would co-host, presenting our vision to clients, partners, and perhaps most critically to the next generation of consultants. We arrived at the Summit Center downtown just as the sun gilded the glass facade. The lobby buzzed with early arrivals, young professionals clutching notebooks, established clients in crisp business attire, and a handful of board members exchanging polite nods. Banners lining the entrance read, "Empowering Tomorrow's Leaders Together." I straightened my jacket and smoothed a crease in my shirt, catching Alex's eye. He offered me a tight smile. "Ready." I took a deep breath. Ready. In the grand ballroom, tables arranged in concentric circles framed a central stage. The city skyline gleamed through floor-to-ceiling windows behind the podium. Maria Chen, radiant in emerald green, greeted us at the dais. "Thomas Alexander, welcome. We couldn't have launched this without you." I shook her hand, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thank you, Maria. Let's make this a day Liz would have been proud of." Alex and I stepped to the microphone as the murmur quieted to an anticipatory hush. I began. "Good morning, everyone. When I inherited Carter Consulting Solutions, I inherited a legacy built on grit, creativity, and community. Today, we continue that legacy by investing in you, future leaders who will shape our industry." Applause rippled around the room as I gestured to a series of portraits displayed along the side walls, past interns and mentees now thriving as partners and innovators. Alex took over seamlessly. We've invited 3 of these stars to share their journeys from initial internships to leading major projects under our new mentorship program. He introduced the first speaker, Priya Kapoor, a former data analyst who now heads our renewable energy division in Colorado. As she recounted late-night coding sessions and the thrill of launching our pilot solar microgrid in Denver's urban core, the audience leaned in, inspired by her transformation. Between speakers, I mingled with guests, shaking hands and fielding questions. A group of finance students pressed me for advice on ethical leadership. "Always ask, Will this choice uplift people? I told them. Profit follows purpose, not the other way around. They nodded furiously, taking notes. Later, I spotted Alex deep in conversation with a venture capitalist known for snubbing social impact initiatives. I approached quietly and heard Alex's steady voice. We measure returns differently at Carter by community well-being and long-term sustainability. That's where true value lies. The investor raised an eyebrow. Interesting. I'd like to see your metrics. Alex smiled, confident. Let's schedule a deeper dive. I clapped Alex lightly on the shoulder, sensing our unspoken bond, where once we clashed, now we collaborated. As noon turned to afternoon, the symposium moved to breakout sessions. I led a panel on balancing growth and good, joined by Maria and an academic from the local university. We discussed community-funded projects, renewable energy initiatives in rural areas, and I shared our battle with Orion as a case study in corporate resilience. After the session, a PR rep tapped me on the shoulder. The live stream comments are flooding in. People love this transparency. I smiled, heart swelling. Liz had always preached candidness, let the world see both strengths and struggles. Meanwhile, Alex hosted mentor match pairing seasoned consultants with interns. I watched as pairs introduced themselves, hands clasped in enthusiastic greetings. One intern, a young woman named Tasha, beamed as she spoke of her excitement to learn advanced project management. Alex caught my eye and gave a small thumbs up. The day's climax arrived with a keynote speech from me back at the podium. As I began today, we stand at the intersection of legacy and innovation. I felt a profound connection to Liz's original aspirations. I recounted her early days, how she haggled at trade shows for prototypes, sketched business plans on diner napkins, and believed wholeheartedly in mentoring the next generation. I paused, my gaze sweeping the room. Her lessons guide every fiber of our company. I turned the spotlight to Alex, and now it's his turn to lead us forward. He took the microphone, voice steady. My mother taught me that leadership isn't about titles or tenure. It's about lifting others so they can lift themselves. I see that spirit in every face here today. He outlined our 5-year strategic plan, doubling mentorship enrollment, expanding community housing projects to 3 new states, and allocating 2% of our profits to scholarships for underrepresented students. Each bullet point was met with nods and murmurs of approval. As he concluded, the room erupted in applause. I felt tears prickle at my eyes, tears not of grief, but of pride. We had taken Liz's dream and magnified it, honoring her while forging our own path. The symposium ended with a networking reception around the rooftop terrace. Alex and I stood side by side, watching the sun slip behind the mountains. He leaned in. Dad, I think we nailed it. I nodded and wrapped an arm around him. We did it for her and for everyone she believed in. Later that night, as I sat alone in Liz's office, the city lights mirrored in my window, I reread her framed letter. Her words had guided us through every challenge, from the hostile takeover threat to the NIMBY injunction, and now this celebration of leadership. I realized that the legacy she entrusted to me was never just about protecting a company. It was about empowering people, about transformational leadership fueled by compassion. I set the letter aside and opened my laptop to draft a press release summarizing the day's triumphs. As I typed, I paused at the closing line, Carter Consulting Solutions building futures together. I smiled, knowing those words carried the weight of every struggle, every victory, and every heart we'd touched. Tomorrow would bring new obstacles, market upheavals, policy changes, unforeseen crises. But tonight, we'd proven that a legacy rooted in character could withstand any storm. And as I shut my laptop, I whispered into the stillness, "Rest easy, Liz. We're carrying the torch." The orchid's petals rustled in the gentle breeze, as if affirming that her vision was alive and thriving in our hands. The Monday after our Legacy and Leadership Symposium felt like the calm after a storm, but in our world, calm rarely lasts. By mid-morning, I found an email from the City of Cheyenne's procurement office, an invitation to bid on the largest smart grid contract in municipal history. The scope was staggering, integrating renewable microgrids, upgrading aging substations, and deploying IoT sensors across every neighborhood. If Carter Consulting won, we'd solidify our reputation and expand Liz's community vision on a grand scale. I called Alex's office. He answered on the first ring, excitement clear in his voice. "Dad, I was just about to forward you the RFP. This is huge." I leaned back in my chair, scanning the document on my screen. "It's more than huge, it's transformative. Are you available for a strategy huddle in 30 minutes? "Absolutely." He hung up, and I felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the thrill of a new challenge. In the war room, formerly the employee lounge, we taped the RFP documents across whiteboards. Maria joined us, carrying coffee and a stack of binders. Paula and Marcus slid into chairs. The team felt electric. I cleared my throat. City wants a turnkey solution by year end. They emphasize affordability, resilience, and community engagement. We've done individual pilot programs, but never on this scale. Alex nodded. We need a phased approach. Phase 1, critical substation upgrades and microgrid rollout in high-priority zones. Phase 2, IoT deployment citywide. Phase 3, community training and ownership programs. Paula spoke next. Financially, we'll need to underwrite initial capital costs and propose a pay-as-you-save model. Residents pay back through energy savings, not upfront fees. Maria added, "We can leverage our impact fund to seed grant matching, lowering barriers for low-income households." I scribbled notes, excitement building. "Let's flesh out the technical specs and financial models. Alex lead community engagement framework, Maria draft grant proposals, Paula refine the pay-as-you-save terms, Marcus coordinate with legal on contract compliance." Within hours, we had a clear game plan. I glanced at Liz's orchid on the windowsill, its petals unfurling as though cheering us on. Over the next week, our proposal took shape: sleek charts, heartfelt resident testimonials, detailed engineering plans, and a robust financing structure. Alex and I worked late nights in Liz's old office, surrounded by her framed letter and the hum of my laptop. One evening, as I finalized the budget spreadsheet, Alex leaned against the doorframe. "Dad, did you ever think we'd be here bidding on revolutionizing an entire city's power grid?" I looked up, weariness and pride in my eyes. "Never. But Liz believed we could do anything." I trailed off, emotions breaching. He crossed the room and sat beside me. "We'll honor her, Thomas." "We will." His hand on my shoulder steadied me. Presentation day arrived with Cheyenne's skyline ablaze at sunset. The city council chamber was packed: council members, journalists, community leaders, and our team. A long table faced a raised dais where the mayor and procurement committee waited. Alex and I dressed in crisp suits, faces lit by both nerves and purpose. When the mayor called the meeting to order, I felt the weight of dozens of projects and untold futures resting on my shoulders. Alex whispered, "Ready." I nodded, then stood to speak. "Mayor Alvarez, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Thomas Walker, and alongside my son Alexander Walker, I represent Carter Consulting Solutions. We've devoted the past decade to building resilient, community-centered energy projects across Wyoming. Alex took over, voice clear. He walked the room through our phased plan, pausing for charts that showed projected savings and greenhouse gas reductions. He introduced residents who'd benefited from our pilot microgrids, a single mother whose power was restored during last winter's blizzard, a veteran couple powered by rooftop solar. Their faces on screen reminded everyone this was about people, not just wires. We concluded with a bold promise: 100% energy reliability for critical services, 40% renewable generation within 2 years, and community ownership models that ensured local stakeholders had seats on their own oversight boards. Silence followed the room, tense with anticipation. The procurement chair, Councilmember Edwards, spoke first. This proposal is comprehensive and compassionate. It addresses technical, financial, and social dimensions. He glanced at colleagues, then added, "We'll need to review the details, but I see no reason not to move forward." Applause broke out. Alex and I exchanged triumphant grins. 2 days later, the official announcement landed in my inbox. Carter Consulting Solutions had won the contract by a unanimous vote. Relief and exhilaration coursed through me. I called Alex immediately. "We did it," I breathed. He laughed, joy in every syllable. "This changes everything." That evening, the team gathered for an impromptu celebration at a rooftop terrace overlooking the city lights. Glasses of champagne sparkled under string lights as staff and directors cheered our victory. Maria toasted to visionaries past and present, holding up her glass. Paula and Marcus toasted financial prudence. Engineers toasted innovation. Community liaisons toasted future partnerships. Alex and I stood close, side by side, soaking in the moment. I wrapped an arm around him. "To your mother," I said softly. He looked up, eyes glistening. "To her." The following morning, I rose before dawn to meet with plant managers for the first phase kickoff. As I climbed into my truck, I paused at the gate, glancing back at the lit windows of headquarters. It felt like more than a building. Now it was the heart of a movement Liz had ignited, and we were its new keepers. On the highway, I called Mrs. Patel, the elderly neighbor from our housing project. "Ma'am, I wanted you to hear first, we won the contract. Our microgrids will soon power every street in Cheyenne, including your neighborhood." Her voice quivered with gratitude. "That's wonderful, Mr. Walker. Your mother would be so proud." I swelled with emotion. We're going to do right by her and by you. As sunrise painted the plains in gold, I drove on, mind alive with logistics, engineering schedules, community forums, board approvals. The path ahead was long and winding, but I felt anchored by purpose and partnership. That evening, returning home, I found Alex waiting outside my apartment. He handed me 2 mugs of hot cider. "Thought you could use a break." I accepted one, warmth spreading through my hands. "Thank you." He leaned against my truck, eyes on the horizon. "Dad, I'm glad we did this together." I lifted my mug. 2 together. He clinked his to mine, and we sipped in companionable silence. As the night enveloped us, I knew that winning the contract wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a legacy renewed. With my son at my side and Liz's guiding words in my heart, we would light the way forward for our city, proving that character-driven leadership could illuminate even the darkest storm. When the contract award landed in our hands, I felt exhilarated and undeniably exhausted. But as dawn broke 2 days later, I was back at the headquarters loading blueprints and laptops into my car for our first site visit under the new City of Cheyenne's Smart Grid program. Alex met me in the parking lot, coffee in hand, already scanning his tablet for the latest sensor calibration protocols. "Good morning, Dad," he said, his tone light but determined. "Ready for our first field test?" I slid behind the wheel, the familiar hum of my old Ford truck comforting beneath me, as I'll ever be. We arrived at the Substation 17 facility, once a crumbling relic of 1970s infrastructure, and were greeted by Derek Hawkins, the Rocky Mountain Co-op manager, who'd survived our inverter crisis weeks before. He gave us a nod as rain pattered on the corrugated metal roof overhead. "Glad you could make it," he said, leading us inside. The main control room smelled of oil and dust. Rows of outdated panels and gauges spanned the walls, and a single engineer hunched over a laptop, eyes bloodshot from late-night code. I felt a pang of gratitude. This program wouldn't succeed without their expertise. Maria joined us via video call, her face filling the screen on the engineer's monitor. "Team first test today is energy flow management," she said. "We're directing solar input to priority loads, hospital emergency services, then residential zones. Let's see how the IoT sensors handle dynamic shifts." Alex and I exchanged a quick glance and got to work. I monitored voltage inputs at the breaker panel while Alex toggled settings on his touchscreen interface. Outside, rainwater pooled around the equipment pads, remnants of our community housing. Runoff challenge now mitigated by improved drainage funded through our impact investments. Suddenly alarms sounded. Red lights blinked on several consoles. Derek cursed under his breath. "That's not good." Alex's fingers flew across the screen. "It looks like sensor node B12 is misreporting load data showing zero draw when there's clearly demand." He turned to me. "Dad, we need to recalibrate on the fly." I grabbed a handheld analyzer and sprinted down the aisle of panels, ducking under dangling cables. At node B12, I found a loose connector, likely from the rain's moisture shifting the conduit. I tightened the clamp, wiped the contacts, and signaled Alex over the comlink. He reran diagnostics, and the red lights winked out. Systems realigned smoothly, power rerouted, hospital backup generators disengaged, and residential meters stabilized. Maria's face appeared on the screen again, relief washing her features. "Great work, Walker Duo. Let's log this incident for the maintenance playbook." We exhaled simultaneously. Derek clapped Alex on the shoulder. "You two make a great team." Back at headquarters, the rest of the day flew by in a whirlwind of incident reports, revised protocols, and deeper analysis of weatherproofing measures. When evening came, I found Alex waiting outside my office, tracing patterns in the rainwater on his phone's broken screen. "You handled that recalibration brilliantly," I told him. He shrugged, exhaustion lining his young face. "Just another day at the office." I studied him. "It's more than that. You saved critical loads when failure could have meant lives." He looked away, then met my gaze. "I'm proud of what we're building here, especially because we're doing it together." I nodded, emotion thick in my throat. "We're both students of your mom's lessons service, first business second." A week later, we stood before a crowd at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our first community-owned microgrid in the Sunset Park neighborhood. Local families gathered under bunting and balloons, children darting between display tables. Mrs. Patel, now a vocal advocate, gripped my hand. "This has changed my life," she said, eyes shining. I returned her smile. "Your independence matters to us." Alex handed a ceremonial oversized key to the neighborhood association president. Cameras flashed and the mayor declared Sunset Park the model for future developments. When the scissors sliced the ribbon, applause thundered, and I felt pride wash through me like sunlight through clouds. But as celebrations wound down, a voice at the edge of the crowd caught my ear. Mr. Walker. I turned to see Evelyn Crawford, her umbrella forgotten. Anxiety and begrudging respect warred on her face. I have to admit this looks impressive. I approached her, offering a slight bow. Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. We'd love your input as we expand. She hesitated, then extended a tentative hand. Count me in, if only to keep you honest. I clasped her hand firmly. We promised transparency. As the sun set and the neighborhood lights flickered on, I found Alex at the truck leaning against the hood. He watched the microgrid panels glinting in the dusk. You pulled that off, he said. Even Evelyn's on board. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. We did it together. That night, fatigue finally overtook me as I climbed the stairs to my apartment. My inbox still held a dozen action items, but I resisted the urge to dive back in. Instead, I retrieved Liz's letter from its frame and read her closing words for the 100th time. You deserve every penny, and I trust you to use it for good. Tears blurred the ink. I bowed my head, whispering, Thank you, Liz. I pressed the letter to my chest before tucking it back in its place. The following morning, the company intranet, pinged with news post-ribbon-cutting feedback surveys, showed 95% resident satisfaction and a 60% reduction in blackout complaints citywide. Community forums buzzed with excitement for future phases. I strolled through the headquarters atrium, the buzz replaced by a quiet satisfaction. In the corner, Alex and Maria were sketching ideas for next month's Youth STEM workshop. I paused to watch them, 3 generations of visionaries converging under one roof. Alex spotted me and waved. I joined them at the whiteboard, adding my own notes. A junior engineer peeked over our shoulders and asked, Can I join the planning team? Before I could answer, Alex grinned. Absolutely. Liz believed in bringing new voices into the fold. I caught his eye, pride swelling. She did. And now we carry her torch. As we drafted workshop modules, hands-on coding stations, renewable energy kits, mentorship circles, I realized how far we'd come. From a will reading that shook walls to a citywide transformation, our journey had been one of redemption, partnership, and unwavering resolve. That afternoon, I paused outside the rooftop garden to take in the cityscape transmission lines arcing across neighborhoods, microgrids humming in the distance, solar panels gleaming under a pale blue sky. I felt Liz's presence in every panel, every smiling resident, every confident stride of my son. The legacy she entrusted to us was not safe in some vault. It was alive in every community we served. I inhaled deeply, savoring the moment before diving back into the day's challenges, because that's what leadership meant, facing new storms with courage, guided by the light of values that outlast any crisis. And as I stepped inside to continue our work, I whispered once more, Rest easy, Liz. We've got this. Tuesday morning arrived with an unusual stillness. Even the city's usual hum felt muted, as though Cheyenne itself was holding its breath. I clutched Liz's letter in one hand and my coffee in the other as I descended the stairs to the lobby of our headquarters. Today, the board convened to approve the National Expansion Plan, our boldest move yet, taking Carter Consulting Solutions beyond Wyoming into neighboring states. This was the culmination of every step we'd taken since that will reading, defending our independence, rebuilding our reputation, and proving that character-driven leadership could thrive. I entered the boardroom to find Alex already seated beside Maria and Paula. His posture was immaculate, his expression serious. We exchanged a silent nod. No words were needed to convey the weight of what lay ahead. Chairs filled, and the board chairman, Mr. Winston Halbrook, a former mayor and longtime supporter of Liz's community programs, looked up when I took my place at the head of the table. "Let's call this meeting to order," he said, voice resonant. He gestured to me. "Thomas, the floor is yours." I cleared my throat and unfolded the National Expansion Proposal, a comprehensive plan covering market research pilot projects in Colorado, Utah, and Nebraska, and a phased hiring approach to maintain our mentorship ethos. Thank you, Mr. Halbrook, and members of the board. Today we present our vision to bring Carter's community impact model to new regions. We propose initiating 3 pilot programs, each aligning with our core values of resilience, affordability, and local empowerment. I handed the slides to Alex, who clicked through customer testimonials from our Wyoming project's farmers, whose power was unbroken during storms, families whose energy costs dropped 30%, and entrepreneurs who launched green startups with our grant matching. As each story appeared on the screen, I felt Liz's presence in the room urging me on. When the narrative ended, Paula stepped forward with financial projections. Our break-even analysis shows profitability by year 3 with a projected 7% ROI, even after accounting for our impact investments. We've secured preliminary agreements with municipal partners in Denver and Salt Lake City for matching grants. Marcus chimed in. From an operational standpoint, we already have field teams ready for expansion. The legal frameworks are in place for cross-state contracting. Our firewall defenses rights plan and tender offer remain robust, protecting our independence. Maria closed the presentation. Culturally, we'll embed our mentorship program from day 1, ensuring each new region benefits from direct community engagement. We're not just exporting services. We're exporting our ethos. A hush fell. The board members conferred in low tones. I recognized skepticism in a few faces, fear of overreach anxiety about diluting our core mission. But I also saw glimmers of excitement. Finally, Mr. Halbrook spoke. "This is ambitious. The risks are non-trivial, but the rewards, social and financial, could be transformative. Do I have a motion to proceed with the pilot expansion?" A director from finance spoke first. I second. Hands went up one by one until the proposal passed unanimously. Relief flooded me so intensely I thought I'd choke on it. Alex exhaled audibly beside me, and we shared a triumphant glance. Later that afternoon, I took a moment to step onto the rooftop garden. The early fall air was crisp, the courtyard below bathed in golden light. Alex emerged, hands in pockets, and joined me at the railing. "That went better than I dared hope," he murmured. I nodded, still buoyed by victory. "It's the start of something big." He looked out at the city lights flickering on. "I'm proud of us." I laid a hand on his shoulder. "You led that presentation like a seasoned CEO." He shrugged. "I had good coaching." We stood in companionable silence, each lost in our thoughts. Then Alex turned, voice serious. "Dad, I want to talk about next year's budget. The board will expect us to reduce costs in our legacy programs to fund the expansion. I don't want us to shortchange our Wyoming community." His words struck deep, an echo of the NIMBY confrontation and the injunction threat that taught us balance. "You're right," I said. "We'll present a budget that allocates new resources without sacrificing existing commitments. Maybe we phase new hires rather than cut chapters." He nodded, approval shining. "And we can seek additional grant partners for the new states, so we're not pulling from our core fund." "Exactly," I agreed. "Your mother always taught me that growth should never cannibalize what you value most." Alex smiled, and I felt a surge of gratitude for his partnership. That evening, back at home, I found my inbox filled with congratulations from municipal leaders and expressions of national media interest. The New Frontier Business Journal wanted an interview, and a local university asked me to keynote their entrepreneurship conference. I paused over the request, torn between pride and the need to protect family time. I typed a quick reply accepting the university keynote for their spring session and requesting a later interview date for the magazine. I closed the laptop and poured 2 glasses of iced tea. A soft knock sounded on my door. Alex stood in the hallway, looking tentative. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course," I said, handing him a glass. He entered and settled on the couch, gaze distant. I've been thinking about my role," he began, voice quiet. "I know I'm not your first hire, but I want clarity. I want an official title and defined responsibilities, so I don't just drift into whatever comes next." I sank beside him, touched by his candor. "I'm sorry I didn't formalize that sooner. You're Chief Impact Officer overseeing community programs, mentorship initiatives, and stakeholder engagement. You'll report directly to me and the board." His eyes widened. "That's more than I expected." I reached for his hand. "You deserve it. Your mother would have formalized it immediately." He exhaled relief, softening his features. "Thank you, Dad. I'll earn it." "You already have," I said. The following week, our team gathered to kick off the Denver microgrid project. Alex introduced himself to the city's energy commissioner, and I watched as they discussed grant structures with ease. When I stepped away to field a question from a reporter, I glanced back to see Alex confidently guiding the conversation, a far cry from the tense boy I first met at that will reading. As the sun set over the Rocky Mountains, I stood on a platform beside a half-completed solar array. Workers in reflective vests moved among panels, and a sense of purpose electrified the air. I whispered, "We did it, Liz," as if calling to her across the miles. Pulling my phone from my pocket, I recorded a brief video for Maria Day, 2 in Denver, looking great. "This array will power 500 homes and a school. Proud of our team, and especially my son." I hit send and felt the thrill of each milestone tempered by the steady drum of responsibility. That night, driving back to Cheyenne, Alex rode shotgun tapping notes into his tablet. Blueprints for Utah and Nebraska unfurled on his screen. He looked up. "I can't believe how far we've come." I smiled at him in the rearview mirror. Neither could I. He studied the passing headlights. "Dad, what if we do all this and it still isn't enough? What if the next crisis, or the next board challenge, pushes us to the brink?" His question hung in the car's warm cabin, pressing on my chest. I pulled the truck onto a deserted stretch of highway and parked. Turning to him, I spoke from the heart. Every legacy faces storms. Our strength isn't in avoiding them, it's in weathering them together. Your mother gave us the blueprint: hold fast to our values, protect the people, and never lose sight of purpose. He met my gaze. Together, I reached over and squeezed his hand. Always. We drove on the endless highway stretching before us like a promise. And as the night sky glittered overhead, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it side by side, carrying the torch Liz had lit, guiding communities toward a future built on character, compassion, and unwavering resolve. The Monday after our hit-and-run victory on the interstate grid felt more like Sunday, a calm charged with anticipation. I arrived at headquarters before dawn, parking my truck in our reserved spot, and stepping into the nearly empty atrium. The building was illuminated by early morning glow, the promise of new challenges humming in the air. Today, we would close our first Denver microgrid installation, officially commissioning it. By week's end, Utah and Nebraska projects would follow. It was the crescendo of a year's work, strategic bids, community battles, corporate defenses culminating in real, tangible change. I found Alex in the operations wing, pacing between racks of newly installed inverters. His face was lit by the gentle pulse of indicator lights. When he saw me, his expression softened into a smile. "We're green across the board," he said, voice low with excitement. "Diagnostics are stable, load balancing is textbook, and we've integrated the storage unit seamlessly." I let relief wash through me. "That's incredible." I slipped a hand into my coat pocket and withdrew Liz's framed letter. She'd be proud. He touched the frame reverently. "I wish she could see it." I offered a nod. "She's with us." We climbed onto the service elevator and rode to the roof where the microgrid solar panels glittered under the morning sun. Dozens of engineers and city officials snapped gloves on for the final walkthrough. At the edge of the array, a municipal energy manager named Rosa turned to me. "Thomas, from power outages to this level of redundancy, it's unreal." I shook her hand. "Your community led the way. We followed." She smiled. "I'm just one voice, but my neighbors, they've rallied behind this." She pointed to a row of battery banks humming softly. "When the storms hit, this will be their lifeline." I felt a pang of emotion. This was the real payoff, technology bridging hope and necessity. Alex tapped his smartwatch. "Mayor Alvarez is here." We turned to see the mayor stepping out of a black SUV behind us, flanked by city council members. His presence lent weight to our small ceremony. After brief greetings, he joined me at a podium I hadn't noticed until then. The press crew milled around, cameras at the ready. I inhaled deeply, recalling our first tense boardroom presentation. "Good morning," I began addressing the gathering. "Today we stand on the roof of possibility, where innovation meets community need." I gestured to the panels and batteries. "This microgrid will power 200 homes, 2 schools, and 1 hospital. It will weather storms and save lives." The mayor raised his hand in applause. "Mr. Walker, your leadership has transformed our energy landscape. On behalf of this city, thank you." The crowd cheered. I glanced at Alex, whose chest rose and fell with pride. After the official switch flip, we joined our team in high fives and hugs. Maria led the engineers in a group photo under the panels, and Paula distributed celebratory cupcakes stamped with our logo. I slipped away to Liz's office, now my personal workspace, to jot notes for a keynote speech at the Regional Energy Summit next month. As I sat at her old desk, the orchid beside her letter still bloomed. I closed my eyes, hearing her voice. "Remember, Thomas? Every system is people before power." I opened the guest book on the desk and added an entry. "This milestone belongs to Liz's vision and our team's dedication. Here's to the next horizon." Then I folded the note and tucked it inside her letter's frame. That evening, Alex and I drove home in companionable silence. The radio buzzed with local news celebrating our microgrid's commissioning. He turned off the ignition and faced me. "Dad, do you ever think about what comes after expansion? What's left to build?" I studied him, surprised at the depth of his question. The road ahead had always been clear: next pilot, next contract, next state. But his question touched something deeper. "What Liz taught us wasn't about perpetual growth," I said. "It was about making each project a testament to our values. Success isn't a destination, it's a measure of impact." He absorbed that, nodding slowly. So we keep measuring lives improved, not profits earned. I smiled. Exactly. The following week I addressed the regional summit, telling our story from will reading to national rollout. I spoke candidly of the corporate battles, the technical crises, and the community objections. But I ended on our triumphs: microgrids powering hospitals' homes, built for families, interns mentored into careers. The audience rose in applause, and as I stepped off the stage, reporters and energy executives approached with opportunities and accolades. It was surreal, a moment of recognition for a journey that began with a single sentence in a will. Back at the hotel, I called Alex. He answered in the lobby, suitcase at his feet. "Dad, a client from Nebraska wants to tour Denver's microgrid before we start theirs." "Great," I said. "We'll make it happen." He hesitated. "Also, I've been thinking about a sabbatical. 6 months traveling to communities we serve, gathering stories, building relationships." My heart tightened. He had grown so much, but my instinct wanted to keep him close. I paused, then remembered Liz's last words: empower others to find their own paths. I let pride win over fear. "Take it," I said. "Tell me where you want to go, and I'll help arrange it." His relief was palpable. "Thank you, Dad. I'll make every moment count." That night I found myself in Liz's garden, alone under the stars. The rooftop terrace was empty now, save for the soft glow of security lights. I leaned on the railing, looking out over the panels that spelled our accomplishment in silent, steady lines. Memories of our early struggle, the smirks in Carla's office, the shock of that $33.5 million, the confrontation with my son washed over me. Each had shaped me, hardened me, and taught me forgiveness. I touched my chest where Liz's letter hung beneath my shirt, a physical reminder of her faith. With a measured exhale, I whispered, "We did it." The next morning, I drafted an email to the entire company. As we celebrate our national expansion, remember that our true power lies in integrity, compassion, and community. Let's honor Liz's legacy by making every new project a beacon of hope. I signed it, then clicked send and closed my laptop. I stepped out into the crisp air and walked to the rooftop garden where a note awaited me pinned to the orchid's pot. It was from Alex's dad. "Thank you for trusting me to carry on her work. I'm off on my journey today, 6 months of listening, learning, and sharing stories. Keep building, and I'll bring back new inspiration." I folded the note, tears prickling. I whispered to the orchid watch over him and tucked the paper into the leaves. That afternoon I stood at my window looking out at the city, the sky shifting through clouds and sun. A sense of completion filled me. Not an end, but the honoring of a circle, Liz's vision, my stewardship, Alex's partnership, and the countless communities we served. I felt her legacy breathe in every panel, every home, every life touched. As the next chapter unfurled, projects beyond our homes, voices to mentor storms to weather, I knew we'd face it anchored by values far stronger than any corporate charter. Because at the heart of every endeavor was the simple truth: Liz had left us. Character matters more than credentials, and love is the most powerful currency of all. And with that, I closed the window, ready to walk into whatever came next, carrying her torch, hand in hand with my son, guided by a promise that would never dim.